66 million years ago, a stone from the heavens changed the world forever. The age of giants ended, but life did not give up. This video tells the story of how an extinction became our beginning. You will discover that even the greatest catastrophe cannot stop the pulse of life. The end of the dinosaurs was, in fact, the first sentence of our story. We were born from those ashes, that darkness, and that immense resilience because life never stops, it only transforms, adapts, and begins anew every single time. This is our true story. I want you to stop and think for a second. No human voice, no motor noise, no city hum, just the wind, just the rustle of leaves, just the breath of animals. This is what the Earth was once like. 66 million years ago today, this planet was a completely different place. Forests were like endless green seas. Actual seas were much more radiant than today, much cleaner, and life was everywhere, free, wild, rooted, old. The name of this period, Cretaceous. It is hard to imagine the Cretaceous because the creatures living then push our imagination. On land, massive herds of triceratops roamed with their huge horns and bony shields. They looked as if they were carved from stone. In the sky, pterosaurs soared. These creatures, whose wingspan sometimes rivaled a small plane, would blend into the wind and vanish into the horizon. In the depths of the seas, other monsters ruled, true sea dragons with their flippers and sharp teeth. And on land there was an undisputed king, Tyrannosaurus rex. 2 tons of muscle, claw and instinct. It would pounce on its prey at dawn. Its huge feet would shake the ground. For an animal that saw it, there was only one choice: run or die. But beneath this ferocity lay a strange balance. Every creature had a place, every breath had a meaning. Herbivores grazed in massive fern forests, carnivores hunted in the morning mist, insects flitted from flower to flower of that era, and among the tree branches the first birds, who had not yet fully mastered flight, would spread their arms like wings and practice. It was a perfect world in its own bloody and ruthless perfection. But there was something unaware of this perfection. In space, in the darkness that nothing knew, a stone was traveling. This stone had set out not years but millions of years ago. It had broken off from the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, traveled through the solar system and glided through the silence of the universe, a massive jagged ice-cold piece of rock approximately 10 kilometers in diameter. An Earth, without even realizing it, was waiting for it. Under Earth's beautiful blue sky, the seasons kept turning, mountains rose, oceans shifted, volcanoes spewed fire. Everything was normal, everything was fine. But in space, that stone was approaching. Now let's experience that day together. 66 million years ago, in the place we now call the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, the sun rose as usual. The sea was deep blue, the mainland was tropical and humid, forests were noisy. Hadrosaurs were crossing rivers, their calls echoing through the valley. Herds of ankylosaurs walked slowly southward, their bony armor glistening in the morning sun. In the marshes, small compsognathus hunted insects with agile movements. And somewhere a T-Rex was returning from a hunt, full tired, walking with giant strides. No one was looking at the sky. Then something changed. The birds went silent. The animals froze where they stood. The sky began to change color, first a faint glow, then stronger, then unbearable. The asteroid entered the atmosphere. At a speed of over 70,000 kilometers per hour, the air in front of it compressed and heated so quickly that the atmosphere itself began to ignite. If you looked from the ground, you would see a glowing ball like an ember growing larger and larger in the sky, and a sound never heard before. Then it struck. Think of the Sea of the Yucatan now. Imagine that the sea in an instant was gone. It evaporated within seconds. The energy created by the impact was many times greater than all the nuclear bombs humanity has ever made. 100 million megatons. The Earth's crust folded like a handkerchief. Stones melted. The sky caught fire. In an area thousands of kilometers in diameter, nothing remained. But the true destruction came after. Fragments of stone and metal thrown by the impact traveled around the entire world. Then they returned. Red-hot stones rained down like fire. Every falling piece started a new blaze. Forests vanished in a single breath. Oceans boiled. Fire rained from the heavens. And then came a wave from above. A tsunami 1,000 meters high surged inland from the coasts. It wiped away shorelines. The temperature rose to hundreds of degrees. Even rock flowed. The largest dinosaurs collapsed wherever they stood, not by drowning but from the heat. Rivers evaporated. The sky was no longer visible. The Earth was a scream. But this was not the most terrifying part. The dust and soot thrown into the air by the impact remained suspended in the atmosphere for weeks, months and years. Sunlight could not pass through. Day and night blurred together. The world went dark. The temperature dropped. Slowly, relentlessly it dropped. Photosynthesis stopped. Plants began to die, first the leaves, then the trees, then the massive fern forests. Herbivores could find no food. Hungry and sick, they collapsed one after another. The carnivores followed them. No matter how great a hunter you are, if there is no food, hunger wins. The T-Rex wandered through charred trees in the land it once ruled. It searched for food. It found none. Eventually it too collapsed. A triceratops stood alone on a grey plain. Once they were thousands, now it was alone. The cold was bending it, hunger was consuming it, and one morning it did not not get up again. Thus one by one species were erased. Not in a day, slowly, one last breath, one last step, one last look. The earth was now breathing only ash. But right here the narrative changes, because not everything died. Under the ground, in riverbeds, in the cracks of rock, small lives were clinging on. Insects survived, amphibians survived, and a group of small warm-blooded animals active at night. Mammals. These small creatures who until that day lived in the shadows and tried to remain unseen where dinosaurs stepped had been waiting for their chance for centuries. They were inside the earth, they were safe, and they were alive. In the darkness the heart of the future was beating. Years passed. Decades, hundreds of years. The dust slowly settled, the sun pale and distant began to appear again. The first raindrops fell on the scorched earth, water seeped into the cracks. And there something illogical happened. Forgotten seeds germinated. First moss, then ferns, then small flowers, pale, delicate but real. Life returned. The insects emerged first, then small reptiles, surviving birds and mammals. The small creatures that once trembled in the shadow of the T-Rex under the sun were now running freely in the open plains, in the places where giants once walked. Light, agile and intelligent creatures roamed. The age of reptiles was over. The age of mammals was beginning. Today we see the traces of this impact. Today beneath the Gulf of Mexico there is a structure known as the Chicxulub crater, around 180 kilometers wide and 20 kilometers deep, hidden under the sea, but still there, proof that the planet has not forgotten that day. Scientists examining the different layers of the Earth recognize the rock layer belonging to that exact period, a thin gray line unusually rich in an element called iridium. This element is rare on Earth but abundant in stones coming from space. That thin line travels around the entire planet. On every continent, on every ocean floor, the same trace exists. The mark of our planet's wound. Scientists call this the KPG boundary, K for Cretaceous, PG for Paleogene. Below this line there are dinosaurs, above this line there are none. It's that simple, it's that dramatic. Now let's take a step back. Since those small mammals trembled under the rock that day, 66 million years have passed, and the descendants of those mammals evolved step by step, generation by generation. Primates came, then hominids, then us. In other words, we were born from that disaster. If that asteroid had not come, dinosaurs would still be here. Mammals would perhaps continue to live in the shadows as tiny invisible creatures. Homo sapiens would never have existed. Think about it, if the orbit of that stone had been different by just a few minutes, if it had passed by from a few hundred kilometers away and not struck the Earth, you wouldn't be here today, neither would I. We are the beings that come after a catastrophe. Today, when you climb a mountain or hold an old piece of stone in your hand, you are holding the trace of thousands of years ago. Those rocks tell a story. Paleontologists find new fossils every year. Every bone, every tooth, every footprint is a silent testimony. It says, I was here, I was breathing on this planet too. And the Earth has not forgotten them. Those rock layers, those fossils, that grey iridium line, they all tell us this life is much stronger than extinction. Life is unrivaled at starting over. The extinction of the dinosaurs was not an end. It was our beginning. Perhaps one day, millions of years from now, another species will look at our fossils, at our bones, at the traces of our cities, and they will wonder, what kind of world was this? Who were they? And even that question will be proof that life continues. Because life does not give up. It transforms, it adapts, it starts again. The time that seemed to stop that day actually never stopped. It flowed and flowed and flowed and came right here to this very moment. Not to an end, to our beginning. If you believe that the memory of the world should not be forgotten, follow NOVYRON. Here every story finds a voice, every silence comes back to life.